You see, the most important part of African history that is rarely given any attention is the Arab slave trade. I want you to calm down and pay attention. TikTok, this teaching is basically for educational purpose. Therefore, if you see this teaching or this video on your FYP, do well to make it go viral so that our African people will know their African history that is being untold for too long. This is the untold history of the Arab slave trade. Now, the trade have already started in Africa over 1,500 years before the transatlantic slave trade, which officially started in the mid-15th century. The Arab slave trade started when the Arabs from the Middle East invaded North Africa in the 7th century AD. The first entry point, I repeat, the first entry point of the Arab Muslims into Africa was through Egypt. It started when an Arab military general named General Amin Abin Alas invaded Egypt on December 639 AD with the capacity of 4,000 soldiers. General Amin Abin Alas successfully conquered Egypt and went ahead to conquer other places such as Western Libya and Tunisia. After the conquest by the Arab general and after they have taken stronghold of such base, Arab rulers would impose a tribute of more than 300 African slaves on those regions conquered and controlled by Arab generals. This evil act continued and grew so fast into greater demand for more African slaves. For the purpose of satisfying this demand of more slaves, the need to take more slaves far from North Africa became very imperative. After slave trade was officially established by Arab rulers and became lucrative, the thing was that it became something important for all Arab Muslims. Now, for the purpose of using more Africans as slaves, Arab Muslims will travel to southern Sudan, pretending to do trade with Africans and secretly arrest and chain innocent Africans as slaves. This shows the level Arab Muslims went just to enslave innocent African women and children. Those Africans caught were taken to far North Africa with the aim of serving as domestic servants or slave concubines to Arab rulers and Arab military generals. This is a history that is so heartbreaking. It has been statistically recorded that from the 10th to the 19th century, more than 7,000 to 10,000 Africans were transported to North Africa each year. History recorded that the journey across the desert to North Africa was absolutely brutal and many Africans died on the journey. It was recorded that African slaves, both mothers and children, who successfully reached the place of drinking water, died instantly, even before that water got to their mouth. That is, even before they tasted that water. Another important place for Arab Muslim slave trade was in the eastern coast of Africa. In these areas, enslaved Africans were highly demanded by Arab traders. Africans in this part of Africa were used for hard labor and sex objects. The first direct evidence of a sizable Indian slave trade was when large numbers of Africans from Eastern Africa were forced to harsh labor on the huge plantations in the area of Mesopotamia, which is present-day Iraq. Enslaved Africans were exported by Muslim Arabs to places such as Asia, India, Indonesia, and even China, where they worked as servants, concubines, and soldiers. This shows how far the Arab slave trade went, but we hardly talk about it. The university hardly give a lecture about it. I don't know if we are so scared to teach our children about the Arab slave trade and its brutality. Now, for instance, Africans were sold to the Chinese rulers and dynasties who brutally rape and molest innocent African women and little children. African slaves who are weak and tired due to long travels and journey on the desert were stabbed to death by their Arab slave masters out of anger. The anger arose because they feel they have lost so much profit that they would have gotten if the African slave was able to walk. This is because every slave buyer needs a healthy slave, a physically healthy slave. African slave women who are weak and sick were hung on a tree to death. Some were slaughtered from their throats, and those African men who could not walk were starved to death by their Arab slave masters. In fact, the worst of all punishment for the castration, that is, the worst of all punishment for all African men, was the castration of black African men so that they will never procreate. It is estimated that more than 80,000 African slaves died each year before getting to the slave markets like the Zanzibar markets. Between 1500 to the 1900, 17 million Africans were sold into slavery by Arab Muslims on the coast of the Indian Ocean and the Middle East, where Arab Muslims reside. Today, we fight to defend the religion of the Arab Muslims, which is Islam. It is very shameful. Let me tell you, that book, The Untold History of the Black Race and the Fall of African Civilization, will go very deep to expose to you the brutality and the atrocities unleashed on Africans by the Arab Muslims, especially around the 7th century AD.